Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video here on May 26th, a Thursday, a little less than 15 minutes after market close here in Jacksonville, Florida, approximately 4:13 p.m. Eastern Time as I start this video up. And today we're going to be looking at two occurrences that have taken place on the S&P 500 that signal it might be time for at least a short-term trend change or a character change. And so we're going to talk a little bit in depth about what that means, what I mean when I say character change, that type of stuff. But two specific things that have happened that are signaling a short-term character change on the S&P 500. And then we're going to get into the regular stuff, what just happened, all that right now like we normally do. So what just happened? NVIDIA positive reversal on earnings. It moved its way back up in after hours and then pretty much right out of the gate this morning went straight up and proceeded to hang on to its gains as the day wore on as well. And markets move higher out of the gate. So you had a brief pause in the first couple of minutes of trading, and then it was boom, off to the races, and the markets really did not look back. G6 just up a little shy of 3%, S&P right around 2%. Q's a little shy of 3% as well. Dow up 1.6, mid caps and small caps both up a little over 2. 60-40 up a little under 1, and Grotection ended the day pretty much flat. We were, for the most part, out of the market with the exception of a few small positions, but we did add some positions today, so we're going to talk about that in just a second. Market state still correction, but here we are, day 5 off the low. There is possibility, based on where the volume actually comes in for the indices and exchanges themselves, the NASDAQ and things like that. I don't have that at this moment yet. We'll know soon here in about 5 to 10 minutes. But there's possibility that today could be a follow-through day technically, although we've had a handful of those in the last 3 or 4 months that have failed. So just keep that in mind. This could show up as a follow-through day on Don's video tomorrow. Trend gauge, we do have one small change. That is the short-term moving the small arrow here pointing towards neutral. That's because we've got IWM, MDY, DIA, and SPY closing above their 21 EMA for the first time in a while. So the first close above the 21 EMA occurred today. QQQ really close as well, but not quite there. So small change on the trend gauge. Other than that, it stays the same. Moving along here, we're going to get right to the tail of the tape in just a moment. But first, like I normally do, if you have any questions about what we do at Revere, if you want to talk to any of us, you can just email us, hunter@revereasset.com, or you can contact anybody here, Dan, Tim, Merrill, or Don at revereasset.com as well. So let's get into the tail of the tape here, and we're going to work through this quickly, and then we're going to talk about what's been happening on the S&P 500 that signals a possible short-term character change or trend change. So sentiment-wise, put-call ratio down a little bit to 0.91. VIX has come back off a little bit from being up in the 30s down to 27.34. Fear greed climbing back up from the recent lows, which are around 6, to a 17 reading, but still an extreme fear. So here we are just after this nasty day here. We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days off the low, and we make an attempt at that 21E. That is where we're at. I just want to put that in terms of the bull case. We failed on 518, which is going to be right here, this nasty day right after the big up day. And I'm going to switch to the actual S&P 500 while we're on this. Okay, so that would be right here, and here we make a new low, and we're trying to come back up the right side here. So news-wise today, GDP revised down just so slightly. Didn't really impact the markets all too much. What were we watching today? The S&P versus support at 3950 roughly, didn't make it there. Resistance at 4,000, got through that pretty easily. Next levels of resistance, 4050 to 4070. That's kind of where we ended up, as you can see, at R2. And then 4090 to 4100 is the next level ahead. But for most part today, these resistance levels were absorbed and the price action continued higher. So positive price action, something we have not had much of in this time frame here over the last 2 months. Action wise, opened up about 1/3% up to 4053, where we kind of chilled out for a little bit, based at around noon to afternoon, we broke out up to that 40.75, pulled back into the last little bit of trading, and then up into the close there, held up at 40.50 again. So on the range here, you can see we did not make it. This is the low and the high. We didn't make it all the way back to the 39.50 support, but this 39.80, 39.85 level, also a key level of support. And we actually pushed through some key levels of resistance to the upside. So some positive things working for the S&P there. Notes coming into this week, 7 straight weeks down for the S&P and the NAS, 8 for the Dow. We did see a 50-day bounce in the 10-year note, which we're going to look at in just a second. Performance-wise, we just ran through this. Sectors, all 10 of 11 green: oils, home builders, retail, semiconductor, airlines, nicely green. Fertilizers having a tough day, bonds slightly down, real estate still struggling, and gold, silver, and miners still struggling. Portfolio-wise, we did buy a short early in the morning, but as the market strength continued, it held on to its gains. It held up where it should hold up at reasonable areas of resistance / support. We added some more exposure to offset that a little bit. So we added TBT, LNTH, and ZIM. We're going to go over those charts in just a second. So very quickly here, this was the prior close, 39.79. Today's close, 40.58. A rally up into that 21 EMA, close slightly at to right above the 21 EMA. 50-day, still a decent bit above, about 5% or so above. But for all intents and purposes, a decent move here on the S&P. Bottom line, we're up into that 21 EMA. Now let's see what happens here moving forward. Now, in regards to those 2 occurrences that have happened on the S&P that signal a short-term character change or trend change, I'm going to show you those, and they're very easy, very quick things to look at. So first being, this is the second consecutive close above the 8-day exponential moving average on the S&P 500 since, you guessed it, all the way back to the start of April. So it's been a full 2 months essentially, and this is the first 2 consecutive closes we've got above the 8 EMA. If you look back through all of this, that's something that we have not had. Any close up through the 8 EMA has been followed by a nasty day like here on 5.5 or like here on 5.18, but today, not the case. So we respect the 8 EMA, we get it back above it, we close above it, and not only that, but we close above the 21 EMA. So 2 closes above the 8 EMA, that is occurrence number 1. Occurrence number 2 is breaking this downtrend line that we have been in since about middle of April here. So follow along with my mouse. I guess I can draw a line for you guys. We'll try that out and see how it works. So this is kind of what we were looking at here coming into today. And you can kind of see right there how we ultimately were able to push through that downtrend line. And we also did this to some degree on the Qs, but S&P 2 closes above the 8 EMA and pushing above a short to intermediate term trend line, breaking that downtrend line to the upside. So those are the 2 occurrences that signal, okay, maybe the S&P / the markets in general are ready for a short-term trend change, which means maybe, you know, that's a bear market rally. Maybe we rally 5% from here, 10%, 2%, who knows? But I'm just noting that this is the first time in 2 months that we've had 2 closes above the 8 EMA, and the first time in about a month and a half or so that we've been able to break this downtrend line. And also, if you want to throw one more characteristic in there, you've got a confirmed daily stochastic hookup on the S&P as well as all of the other indices as well. So there's the 2 occurrences on the S&P. Now let's move through the rest of this stuff pretty quickly here. QQQ, right up into this 300 level, also breaking its own little downtrend line, same as what I just showed you there on the S&P, kind of like in that vicinity there. But up about 3% today, right into this 300 level, hasn't quite made it to the 2 or to the 21, and also has not put in 2 consecutive closes above the 8 EMA. Tech continues to be weaker than pretty much the rest of the market, has sold off more than the market. So that's part of the reasoning there for that. IWM above the 21 EMA, like we said, that partially the reason for the small change on the trend gauge. But above these recent highs as well, around 178-ish, 179, that's something we talked about. MDY, same thing, back above the 21, above this consolidation area here too. 2 consecutive closes above the 8 for MDY and IWM. as well as the close above the 21. And then DIA is going to be the same situation. Actually, a handful of closes above the 8 EMA. First close above that 21 EMA here on DIA. So let's go ahead and go to TNX. And we're going to talk about a position we put on today. It's TBT, but essentially the way you want to think about it is it moves in correspondence with how rates are moving. So if TNX right here, 0 TNX, if this is going down, that means TBT is going down and vice versa. So TBT is a position where we're essentially long the 10-year yield, meaning if this goes up, we make money. So TBT, after this monstrous run, has had its first pullback to the 50. This is the 10-year note. So same thing here, first pullback to the 50. This is what we're watching. We're watching this low here from this day. If this is broken or taken out, then we'd probably be pretty close to getting out of the position itself, but took a chance here on TBT, which again is the opposite of TLT, meaning TLT goes up, TBT goes down. If TLT is down, TBT is green like it was today. So I know that can be confusing, but just think of TBT as being correspondent to this chart here of the 10-year note. And then let's go ahead and get right into the two positions we put on, and then we're going to go through the rest of the charts here. ZIM, a nice little flag here, put on a small position as this one has held up really well following its earnings call here. Didn't look so great initially, but a nice response thereafter, and putting in a nice little consolidation. Hadn't really gone anywhere here in the third day of just resting right here on ZIM. And LNTH, another one we've been monitoring and had on the 21/21 list, the Fab 40. Same kind of situation. One of the top looking charts out there, put a small position on here as well. Even though it has a tendency to have a wide ATR, that's part of the reason for the small percentage position. But a nice looking chart here, staying above the 21 EMA. RS line just continues to move higher. Now let's get to some other stocks of the day, and let's talk about NVIDIA, the big positive reversal. So this actually came down and undercut this 155.67 low in after hours trading yesterday, and then today tagged 160 in the first minute or two of trading and proceeded to go straight to 180 more or less. So a big positive reversal for NVIDIA, big volume on it. But as you can see, this is not necessarily a setup. This is a nasty sell-off where we're getting possibly for some short-term bottoming action here. But this isn't a setup. This is, a lot of charts are similar to this, 200-day moving down, 50-day moving down, but you see a candle like this today. The big point I want to make is this is the first time NVIDIA's even challenged the 21 EMA since breaking it back here. So a big move for NVIDIA up into that 21 EMA. Which helps semiconductors in general. AMD was up 8% at one point today, right up into that 100 level and the 50-day moving average. So semiconductors having a pretty decent day. We also saw the coal names rebound after yesterday. They were down 3 to 4 or 5% today. They came back from that yesterday nicely, and today followed that up. Arch and AMR with some nice strength. Tesla and Amazon, two of the strongest of the big tech names today. Tesla up about 8% or so as well. If we can get that to load, 7.5. First close above the 8 EMA since all the way back in April here. And then Amazon, which has been down in the dumps too, same situation. Big day, up day for a big tech name, up a little over 4%, was up 5% at the highs. But as you can see here, trying to eke out some type of a short-term bottom here for the big tech names as well. Moving along here, HAL, Oil and Gas Services, having a good day today. These were some of the strongest oil names of the day. LTHM and ALB, we've been talking about these lithium names a lot. Nice strong move today over this consolidation high from LTHM, and ALB, similarly a nice strong move over this 250 area. So some big time relative strength in these lithium related names, LTHM and ALB. Really going against the grain of the market over the last couple of months too. Chemical names continue to look pretty strong as well. CC up 4%, OLN up about 2 to 3% here, and then DOW, Dow, all chemical companies here, also having a nice day today. So decent looking charts in all of these spaces. They're not barn burners, but these chemical names continue to hang in there. We also had the G6 type of name strong today. Bros up 16%, Datadog made a nice reversal off of the lows after being down 5 or 6%. Net, Crowd, the usual names, as you can see, up 7%. I think CrowdStrike also up about 7%. So some strong moves from the beaten up growth, which is to be expected. We also had retail have a strong day today, as well as Dick's having a strong reversal yesterday, and Lulu as well with a nice day. DLTR, Dollar Tree, you can see these are some big moves here from these names, up 21%. I mean, that is monumental recovery there for Dollar Tree related to earnings here, but still held its move, held up above this key level, and the moving average is pretty phenomenal. And then Dollar General, another name here that had a big day as well. So some of the retail names coming back to life. As far as what did not hold up so well, not really a ton out there to pick apart today, but CF and NTR, two of the ones that, like we mentioned in Tail of the Tape on the fertilizers, just not having a good go of it today. MRK, Merck, also having a bad day today. But again, this is a constructive chart, just down 1.5% in the midst of it. LNG, a laggard in the oil space today, ended up pulling back a little bit on the day. And then gold miners, we talked about gold and miners and silver struggling today, but these were down a little bit today. A handful of individual names like GOLD, down about 2%, I believe, 3% NEM. These are some of your actual gold mining companies looking a little bit worse than the index or the ETF itself. So that is going to wrap up today's video. Again, if you're looking for those two occurrences that I talked about in the title, that is two closes above the 8 EMA on the S&P 500, as well as that downtrend line break. Not to mention, there's also a bullish MACD cross and a stochastic cross. So some things lining up for at least potentially a short-term rally in the market. So that is going to wrap up the video today, everybody. Thank you for listening. I will see you on the podcast.